we have about 41,538 hectares of state forest land, as well as on the coastal side of the park. And my section, of course, that I manage is in the wilderness section, which is entails also from mountain catchment area up until the coastline. And the legislation that basically allows us to do our work as conservationists or as rangers within the park. We are legislated by a number of legislations, namely the Main Mother Act, being the NEMA Act of 1998. The National Environmental Management Protected Areas Act allows for national parks, of course, to, such as ourselves, to execute our duties. And with that follows the National Environmental Management Biodiversity Act of 2004, as well as the Integrated Coastal Management Act, the National Water Act, the National Forest Act, and we also in the forest section heavily deals with the National Veld and Forest Fire Act. And in the coastal area, the marine space, we have the Marine Living Resources Act of 1998 that allows us as rangers to execute our duties or give us our mandate. So personally, my journey in conservation, I started as a ranger in 2005, where I was a theatre learnership student, enrolled in the then Tsitsikamma National Park, which is now called part or forms part of the Garden Route National Park. And I started there my 2 years within conservation, moved through the ranks to the Mountain Zebra National Park, which is also part of the Eastern Cape, moved back into the Garden Route National Park, but into the forest space this time, and did a bit more of urban conservation for about 12 years in Table Mountain National Park. And now then I was a section ranger, and now I'm a senior section ranger in the Garden Route National Park, as I stated. So it's been quite a journey, and I have completed my studies through UNISA, my National Diploma in Conservation, and which I received a bursary through Sandparks at the time. And now I have completed my BTEC in environmental management through CPUT, and I'm currently, well, going to probably continue my academic studies through UNISA again. So I'm still very much young in this space, and I can learn a lot from, I guess, most of you as well.
Thank you so much, Samel. That's fantastic. We really appreciate you being here. It's really great to hear more about your story. And it's so good to have young people as well coming up in the business so that we can encourage more young people to join. So thank you so much for that. And next, we will be heading to Brian Wanjohi and his colleagues Jackson and Samuel in Kenya.
So hi, I hope everyone is well. I will first hand over to some of my rangers, that's Jackson and Samuel, to first start off, and then I can continue with this.
Great, thanks, Brian.
I am Samuel Lusike, and I'm working in Mugi since 2017. And I was joined in a carpentry department, whereby I worked 3 years up to 2020, and whereby I heard about the vacancy from the rangers. That time they raised that they want 7 rangers, and I was applied, and whereby we gone through the interview, something and I succeeded to get that job where I'm just interesting about the rangers because that is my career, and I would like it, and I like more because it's just to learn more about the animals and also to help the to help the KWS to take care of the wildlife, and whereby I joined that from 2020 up to 2020 up to 2021, whereby they decided to promote me and give it me and job of Lion Ranger, whereby I'm just working now as a Lion Ranger in Moge, and now I'm there to work, and we are just always patrolling inside the bushes and collecting the data such as carcasses, trespass, sighting, and all that, and just reporting to the control so that they record and save. And I'm just interesting for that because I know that it's something that makes me to learn or to improve my skills. I like it that, and maybe I'm just appreciating to my conservancy because of that. They give it us because of giving us that chance. We learn more about the animals, and maybe we'll improve our skills and develop well. And I know that maybe we will reach at in a place that we needed for some times ago. And I think that is all about it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Jackson, as I said earlier. So my story is I joined conservation in Muge in year 2001, where I was employed as a ranger. So since 2001, I was a ranger who patrol and collecting data from all over the corner of the ranch. And Muge now is 49,000 acres based on northern part of Laikipia. So I was employed in 2001. I worked as a ranger. And in year 2002, the Mugi introduced two white rhino. Then I had my experience to monitor the rhino for 2 years. Then Kenya Wildlife Services introduced another 20 black rhinos in the year 2004. So we patrol all over the conservancy, monitoring the rhino. And in year 2007, I was promoted to control office, where I assisted the rhino of Saint Church how to receive all information from the rangers in the field, and then to monitor and educate the new rangers about the importance of wild animals. And also, we help the surrounding community. We teach them how the importance of wildlife, how to take care of them. So Muge Conservancy is surrounded by many communities. Then they have already known the importance of animals. So now I'm working here as a control, and that's my passion about the wildlife. And I'm happy to work with Muge as a radio operator, and we have more to do with the wildlife. And we are happy as Muge. controller. Thank you.
Okay,
Great.
thank you,
Thank you,
Ciel.
Jackson, Samuel. Yeah, over to you, Brian.
Okay, thanks. I think I'll cover part of what Jackson and Samuel have already mentioned. So we are based in Mugi Conservancy. It's in Laikipia, Kenya, and it's 49,000 acres, as Jackson mentioned earlier. And so far, it's home to some of the more rare species, including striped hyenas and gravy zebras, which actually gravy zebras are currently endangered. I don't know if there are many other conservancies around that have the same, but we do have a lot of gravy zebras here. And we are also home to some of the more rare species of trees. For instance, we have very old olive trees in here. So part of our work is to mainly focus on animal conservation and at the same time vegetation conservation. And this has been mostly based on having our fence lines well monitored, and of course, as Jackson mentioned again, communicating with the community and letting them know that this is what we need to protect. This is our resource. So currently, I think a majority of the animals that we have in here includes lions and elephants for the time being. So my journey in conservation is actually one that was not very intentional. I did not end up in conservation because I had actually intended from the word go, but it is a place that I've come to really like and enjoy and grow, and my passion in it has grown. So I would say I first started in a very different background. I took computer science in my university education. After graduation, I took a very different path to conservation. I went into programming, networking, and similar avenues that you would expect as rolling out from an IT or computer science background. It was only up until about 3 years ago that I chose to join into the conservancy business, and I was admitted in Mugi. This is my first posting as a ranger, and I came in the position of security administrator, which is a position that I've held for the past couple of years now. And in that post, I also double as the resident ICT technician, ICT administrator as well. So in this position, we have seen a lot of developments. I came to enjoy a large number of things that I did not appreciate earlier, because of course, as you can imagine, coming from a very different IT background, you rarely think about conservation and animals and everything. But once I came into this space, I realized that there's a lot of resources that actually help in animal conservation, which is part of what I have really enjoyed learning all through. And I've come to discover that this is a space that is just as important as any other space, if not even more important. And in this case, we have deployed various solutions within the conservancy with room for more. We are looking for various ways to improve our governance of technology to help in conservation. So I think that is a brief introduction of who I am and what we do here. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Brian. And we're really, really happy to have you here, and very happy that your computer science journey somehow ended you up in conservation. That's great. Okay, so we actually have a question that's come up in the chat from Linda Park. She says, "Good evening, Jackson and Samuel. Do you have a problem with poaching in your conservancy?"
Okay, I think I can help them in answering that, although I think they will also step in. So as Jackson mentioned some time back, we had rhinos. Currently, we do not. So at the time we had rhinos, it was a long time back. We did not have too much infrastructure. The fences had not been set up. We had some issues with poaching at the time. But since then, we have gradually developed the conservancy to have more resources for monitoring, communication, and everything. So for instance, currently we have an active way of monitoring a significant number of the lions rights that we currently have. So I will say that this has significantly increased our monitoring on the okay, I was reading a comment say that. Sorry. So it has significantly increased our capacity to monitor and patrol the conservancy. Over time, we've also increased the number of armed personnel within our conservancy. And this has significantly helped in minimizing any security incidences. So we have not had a trespass, not really a trespass, a poaching incident recently. Nothing that we can confirm actually. But of course, there is hostility on the other side of the conservancy. Of course, the communities have their own intercommunity conflicts, and we try and protect animals and the staff and the population inside the conservancy from all this. So I would say we do not really have a problem with poaching at the moment. Yep.
Fantastic, Brian. That's great to hear that your methods are working.
Yeah.
Jackson and Samuel, do you care to comment?
Okay, as Brian said, now we are prepared with everything because we have every type of, we have weapons, we have everything now. Whenever rhinos come, we have a good relationship with our neighboring community. So now we are prepared with everything.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
That's good to hear. Okay, so we do have another comment in the chat from Simon Namoni, who says he's very happy to see you guys from his home area, Laikipia. So that's great. Welcome, Simon. Thank you for joining. I would like to say that as we are going along, please feel free to put some questions in the chat. I'm very happy to read them out if there's someone specific you'd like to ask, or once we've finished all the introductions, we can have a more of an open Q&A. So we're going to go to our next speaker now. Asanteni guys, karibuni sana. Let's go to Craig Spencer next.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks very much. So I started my career in the Fynbos biome in the Western Cape, down in a place called Cape of Good Hope, which has now been absorbed into the Table Mountain National Park system. So I did my diploma at Cape Peninsula University of Technology all those many moons ago. And for those of you that know Gerald Wright, he was my supervisor, whatever you call it, my mentor at Cape Point in those days. And I reckon if you could survive that, you could survive anything. I moved on. I fell in love with the Fynbos, and I moved on to the Overberg district. So I spent a lot of time working in the local government structures. And then everything suddenly got absorbed by the Cape Nature Conservation Board. Sand parks moved in and what have you. So most of my, all right, and let's not forget this. And then I ended up in a anti-poaching unit, a little government paramilitary unit down in the Western Cape. We operated the entire the coastal region, the 3,000 kilometers of the South African coastline. And then I moved up here and was the warden of Baluli Nature Reserve, the kind of bad boys of the Greater Kruger National Park for a while. And then I stepped back and retained the wardenship of the Olifants West section on the extreme western boundary of the Greater Kruger Park open system. That's where I'm sitting right now. I'm just going to look over my shoulder every now and again because there's a hyena that keeps coming to steal my dog's food, blankets, and bouncy ballies. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell. One of my colleagues is online, later, Gabela, sitting in the ops room at the moment. So I'll be fielding off a lot of the questions onto her as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Craig. And thank you very much for joining us as well. And thank you later as well. We're looking forward to hearing some of the answers to the questions later.
Thank you.
Okay, and now we are moving on to our last but not least speaker, Dr. Nick Funda.
Thank you very much. And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And it's quite exciting to see the names of the people that have attended this talk. And it's tempting to acknowledge some few people that I know. It's good to see Andre De Georges, I think he's in US. The last time I checked, he used to teach with us at TUT. And the Rangers, Amon from Cote d'Ivoire, and Eric Matamalala from South Africa. Those are the Rangers that I can see. And people like Norman Owen Smith, Professor Norman Owen Smith. It's really a great honor to have such an audience and Gwyn from, he used to work for us for SandParks. I'm not going to go into details of what I did and because that can be a book on its own. I started working in Transkei in 1990, and then we became New South Africa. I worked for New South Africa. And I work for forestry in the Garden Route area, based at Dibvala as the chief forester. And joined SandParks as a section ranger up at Shangoni, north of Palabora, just south of Punda Maria. And moved through the ranks, became a regional ranger, and was based in Lower Sabi and Skukuza. And also got some promotion, and I became a park warden of Marakele National Park. I left conservation, the formal conservation. I went into academia. I became a lecturer at TUT. That's where I hear of the name Andre de Georges. He was a lecturer before my time up at TUT. Then I was recalled again back to SandParks. I became a chief ranger based in Skukuza to deal with rhino poaching. Now I'm based in Pretoria as a general manager for area integrity management. I'm responsible for safety and security of all national parks at an advisory role. There are people that are doing day-to-day work on the ground, but in terms of advisory, both at parks level and also at higher level, to give feedback at higher level of where we are with the challenge of security. Basically, in the savannas, we are faced with the mega herbivore poaching. Your rhinos, the elephant is starting, and lions are also being poached these days. In the coastal areas, we are faced with abalone, because SandParks, I would say, is divided into different biomes. One is we are dealing with a terrestrial environment with 21 national parks. And secondly, we have the marine component that we deal with the issues of abalone. We have 6 marine protected areas that are under SandParks, starting from south of Namibia all the way to the Eastern Cape. And we are responsible for all of that. And the challenges in the Karoo areas, which is starting now, people are stealing our small plants that you find in those areas. Therefore, succulents are becoming a problem for us to police or to look after them. And therefore, there is no dull moment in terms of conservation. And that will be my broad introduction, and I will wait for any discussions that I will be expected to do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Funda. It's really, really great to have you here. We really appreciate you donating your time and expertise. Really amazing to hear about your fruitful career, and also the marine protected areas that are fall under the bracket of SandParks. I actually didn't know that, or didn't think about it. I feel that marine protected areas are often neglected in that respect. So very cool. And Dr. Funda, you mentioned TUT. I know that we have a few students in from Toronto University of Technology, most likely Dr. Cheryl Ogilvie as well. She's one of our best community members here at Unlocking Nature. And that reminds me that I had a question that was asked earlier. For those of you who don't know, this event tonight is a continuation of a series that we've been running for the Toronto University of Technology students, learning about the game rangers. They train most of the game rangers that come into South Africa. And there are so many questions in those sessions that we had to do a spillover tonight so that we could answer them. And one of those questions was from a student called Tandazo, and she directed that question specifically to you, Craig. And her question was, it seems like doing what you do is a very cool and fun job, but what most people don't think about is the hard work and dedication that it takes. And so I would like to ask this question to jump in. What are the skills and the qualities that you find would be the most essential to what you guys do? And what advice would you give a young person who wants to start out in your career?
That question directed at me, of all people.
I know
It's
you're special, Craig.
No, it's a good question. And I think, you know, the academic background is very important, and you should always pursue that as far as you possibly can, whether you do it all at once or whether you do it in stages, because also you've got to recognize that the job market is quite competitive. So a lot of people will, for example, get the diploma like I did, and then later go back and do the BTech, and then later, you know, pursue. However, as important as that might be, there are critical human qualities that I think are necessary. And I always use that example of somebody that goes to university to study music or arts. It doesn't make them an artist. They might know everything about Bach and Chopin and the history of the Stradivarius violin, you know, but they still can't play music from the heart. When you are pursuing this as a career, this is actually a cause. You cannot be time driven. You have to be task driven. You have to accept that things are going to run to overtime. If you are going to expect an air-conditioned Land Rover or Toyota, sorry, you know, from the outset with power steering and live in a fancy place and so on, you're definitely entering the wrong arena. There's personal sacrifice that has to be made, and you have to be comfortable with that. And you have to also identify gaps, and you have to fill them. You know, so these are human qualities. You can't really get a foot in the door without the qualifications that you guys are going through. So pursue that for sure. But remember, what makes you stand out above the rest are those human qualities. That's pretty much it.
No, that's a great answer. Thank you so much, Craig. Dr. Funda, do you have anything you'd like to add to that, maybe?
Yes, you know, when we recruit rangers, more especially at a lower level, because of our unemployment, you advertise position, maybe have 60 vacant positions. Unemployment, you're going to get maybe 6,000 applications. You have to go through those 6,000 applications, and you reduce them into manageable numbers. Let's say we know if we take about 100, it's high possible that we're going to be left with 25. The basic training is really, we want to know the student, we want to know the ranger very well, and we want to know when he's angry, we want to know when she's unhappy, we want to know when she's working under pressure, we want to know when she's working at over 40 degrees Celsius in hot environment, when it's raining and all of that. We want to know the real person that we're going to deal with. And as Craig have said, our work is not 8 to 4, and it's not Monday to Friday. If we do that, the criminals are going to look at that pattern and capitalize when we're not there. Month end is not the day to switch off your parks and go and do shopping. You want to be unpredictable. You want to make sure you are there 24/7. You have human presence 24/7. Therefore, the quality of the people that you are looking for to perform such function, it's something really you need to apply your mind, and you need to really go through the process of selection. We have a very intense selection to make sure that we get the right people. And once you are over that, it becomes very exciting as a career in edge conservation. I think it's the best career. And the late Louis Olivier, who used to be my supervisor, he said, if there are 3 notes after your salary, let's say you're getting 1,000 rand per month, you must add other 3 notes, and you say that is 1,000,000 rand, because the things that you are getting out of the parks the enjoyment, the experience that you are getting out of the parks is you can't get that anywhere else except in parks. The tourists are paying to get into the parks. They pay for accommodation. You are getting free accommodation. You get access into the vehicles. It's not a job. It's a calling. Conservation. We want to see those people that have been called into conservation. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly, Dr. Punda. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry, Craig, go for it. Yeah.
I would like to add on to that, because I think this is one of the critical questions that's going to be asked tonight, and in fact, you could probably cluster all of these questions under this one umbrella. The ability to care and to demonstrate that you really care for the work that we do, whether it's a Microbatrachella capensis or a Sphenicus demersus, or a Loxodonta africana. It shouldn't be about the big and scaries and the claws and the manes and the big tusks and so on. You've got to really care. Some of the best conservationists that I know are managing really small wetlands on the Cape Flats, for example, or whatever it might be. You've got to demonstrate that. Now, there's a critical thing that I look for personally on a curriculum vitae, and that is, have you taken opportunities in your off time to volunteer, to gain experience, to get an extra certificate? Because that demonstrates to me that you're prepared to make self-sacrifice and that your heart is actually in this. So a lot of people will say, oh, I joined the Mountain Club of South Africa. I joined the coastal cleanup mission every weekend, or when I was at school, I started a nature club or whatever it might be. Those things count a lot in your favor for somebody like myself. And I think if you're looking at a list of qualifications that would be desirable to an employer, because we might have misconstrued the question a little bit, So there's the human qualities, which I think are critical, but the suite of qualifications that are offered by the technical universities, now TUT and Kaput and Nelson Mandela Metropole and so on, they do cover those things, and there's short courses during the semester breaks that you guys have got to take advantage of. Your sacrifice starts in semester 1, and if there's a GIS course offered, learn Quantum GIS or ArcGIS, any of the ESRI products. Learn those things. Learn how to use Cyber Tracker. Learn how to navigate. Get a certificate behind you for all of those things. Don't expect your employer to say, all right, I'm sending you on this course and that course and that course. To make yourself more attractive, okay? You could use lipstick, but rather get a list of qualifications that would be useful. Even motor mechanics, for example, could be of a huge advantage. That's it.
Yeah, exactly, Craig. Thank you. One key word there, which I think is heart. Conservation isn't always the most glamorous, but if your heart is in it, have the skills to at least try and go forward with it, and also to continue learning always. And there's so many different skills that come into conservation that you probably wouldn't even thought, like Brian there with his computer science that led him to conservation. And also Marty Jasper in the chat just agreeing that conservation's a calling and a passion. And another question in the chat from Johan, who actually took the thought right out of my head. A question for you, Shamel. What motivated you personally to enter conservation, and also the additional challenges that you might have faced as well being a woman?
So yeah, what prompted me into conservation is I guess, I stay station on the one end and you've got the forest on the other. So it's literally my playground. I got to see the foresters, then called foresters, like Dr. Funda said. They inspired me as well to become a ranger. They worked in the landscape, and I got to be a little bit exposed to it also through schooling, where the park is still doing that program, where we have Kids in Parks program, where I went for a weekend to the park in one of the areas, again, Nature's Valley, got exposed to the various aspects of conservation, how the whole ecosystem works, at least in the marine space. And it further intrigued me. And the documentaries back then, maybe telling also of my age, is 50-50, to name a few. And yeah, the different movies as well and documentaries back then that allowed me to further foster that relation. And it's really a relationship with conservation. It's a lifestyle. At the end of the day, you work and live in the space. So I actually stay in the park, work in the park. And when you actually just out, like a lot of my work now entails, of course, administration, which would be some of the work that a ranger then would also be through the ranks as you come up. You have to do administration and get that right. But the most rewarding as well is like from from the start of the day to the end of the day, you just look at Craig now. I mean, that is definitely living your dream, living your life, living your passion. And that is really what keeps you going. So like you said, long hours of work. Maybe just to come to the next question would be the challenges in conservation that I faced maybe as a female. I was one of the first females in conservation in Mountain Zebra as a permanent staff member. I also in the Titicaca section, then marine space. So you're literally on a boat, there's nowhere to go, and you're on patrol, and you have to, obviously you want to use the bathroom. So you have to learn certain habits early on already, just to, in the space that you're working in. So preparing yourself mentally, physically, and obviously your day-to-day day pack, making sure you've got everything covered. But the one thing also for me, and I think maybe to this date, I've got a great team of rangers. I've worked with a great team of rangers then. I did have some challenges, but as women, we are strong and fierce enough to weather the storm. And it just makes you stronger as well. And it makes you, when you are in a leadership role, that I'm able to equip and guide and help other range of females in the space to navigate their way through it. And even with the males, and Sandbox has actually done very well on that, I must say, where we're also equipping the males as to how to deal with, the unknowing. It's been decades coming now, and we've really moved a long way from only being a few rangers in the field, female rangers in the field, but the males as well, they just sometimes they try to take the work out of your hands, but you are there, the equal part, and you sometimes have to assure them just to have a little bit of patience with me. If I need to, use the hammer, let me use the hammer, and let me get it wrong and then get it right. It might not be all at once, but definitely they've been patient. I've been taught by a legend in his own. He's now one of our fallen rangers, Umpopo Scott. And with him as a mentor and as one of the mentors, that's a male as well in the space, he's guided and he's been able to, even change the mind shift and the way in which we work in this space. So I think with more support as well from our counterparts, and even myself as one of the seniors in conservation, and our CE being a female as well that's leading the way in conservation, I think it's our chairperson is a female. I think we really, the space is open for a lot of females in the space as well. I've also come to know there's a lot of students coming through that's female as well. There's really nothing to fear, nothing that you can't do. And you do have our support, both male and female. Yeah, so I think, and there's also support systems in place to help you go through the certain challenges that you may face along the way. So
Wow, thank you so much, Mel. Thank you so much, well, for first of all sharing that really inspiring story with us. It's so great that you had such a positive experience with having amazing mentors and people around you, and you can now be that for other women wanting to get into the industry. And you also mentioned you're having a relationship with conservation, and I think that's really, it's very true, and I think that's a really good way of explaining it. Thank you so much. So now I think we will go back to Kenya. We had a question in the chat a while back from Eric Nkutoi, who says, how do you people manage community demands in line with your goals and missions? And that's for Brian, and also feel free to bring in Jackson and Samuel as well.
Okay, I'll comment on that. Jackson can step in and Samuel also. So in terms of managing the community demands, I believe that's managing community demands in line with our goals and missions. So one of the things that we are currently doing is actually we are developing a long-term plan for the management of the Conservancy. That's looking into the next 10 years and further. And part of that is to help make programs that will develop a positive relationship with the community, because of course, if poaching is to become an issue or in inter-community conflict is to become an issue, most likely it will be starting from the community level, coming into the Conservancy, because of course, those are the people who have the closest contact with us. So currently we take a number of programs that help in the management of the community relations and just making sure everyone is happy and on the same page with the Conservancy. So I'll mention a few of those. We have various internal programs that we currently run in order to just help the community minimize the conflict points. So for instance, part of the challenges that they have on the outside of the Conservancy is challenges with, let me give a context first. Our surrounding communities are mostly pastoralists, and they rear a large number of animals, that's sheep and cattle mostly. But this more often than not brings a lot of challenges, especially when there's drought in the surrounding areas, because again, in Laikipia, we do not have sustainable rainfall as such. So you'll find that every now and then we'll have maybe an year or a couple of years that we don't have very stable rainfall. And this brings conflict in between the different communities trying to get livestock from the other community and whatnot. So what we try and do as a conservancy to minimize that and in turn improve the relationship is we have various programs internally for helping in the pasture programs. So the community can bring in their cattle, they can bring in their livestock, and we have a grazing plan internally that will help in the management of even the general grazing areas, make sure that it serves a larger number of animals per square hectare or such. And at the same time, help minimize the conflicts that are on the outside. So of course, we provide security internally. So that's part of something that they will not naturally get from the outside, because if we leave them to provide their own security, then it becomes a matter of intercommunity conflict. At the same time, to try and improve relations, we offer our security services to the outside as well. So we, as I mentioned a bit earlier, we have a sustainable number of security personnel. So every now and then, whenever there is an issue on the outside that needs our intervention or needs some security intervention, we help in avenues such as investigations and conflict resolution. So this is often done through, for instance, we have a K9 team. So we usually, now and then, if there is an investigation to be done, we can send out the K9 team along with some of our security officers, have them investigate that. And of course, if it comes to a successful pursuit of whoever did anything that maybe was not sitting too well with the community, that positive image will be related to the Conservancy as well. So we try and take that as an approach to helping improve our intercommunity relations, and maybe just having them know that as a Conservancy, we are as useful to them as they are to us. At the same time, of course, from the community perspective, we offer a number of perks as a Conservancy. Part of this includes we offer some bursaries now and then just to help with with the education, because the communities around here, as I mentioned earlier, are primarily pastoralist communities. They have not traditionally prioritized education. So we try and bring education as a part of just improving the whole conservancy perspective, because the more educated population is one that you can communicate with more effectively and let them know this is what we need and these are the goals that we're trying to achieve. At the same time, we have healthcare programs, outreaches. We just send our healthcare operatives out there into the field and have them just do some medical interventions at the community level and have them come at a central point, have discussions, understand who these people are, what we are doing, what we are about. And that has really helped in our relations. To further just improve on that, we have programs where we support, for instance, women within these communities, and that's done through grants. We offer some grants that help in the starting of smaller businesses, because of course, in these communities, more marginalized communities in Kenya, we find that women are mostly disadvantaged in a way that they do not have too many options in terms of business opportunities. So having these programs bring some source of income improves their position in the society and also helps improve their overall relation to the conservancy. So those are part of the things that we do. Maybe just the final bit will be employment. Primarily what we do as Mugi Conservancy is we put the first priority as the community, the surrounding communities, to become part of the working population in Mugi, so that they just own it and know that this is a part of the whole thing. So that is the same with most other conservancies around us. So we offer the first priority to our neighboring communities. And in fact, I believe Samuel and Lolo are members of the community from around who joined us earlier on, and they are part of the beneficiaries of such programs and such initiatives. Maybe I'll let Samuel or Lowell add if they have any more comments on that.
Additional point of that about the communities, we are just trying to make a good relationship with the around communities, because it's they are because they are the neighboring communities that can help us something that we come or we get near the danger. So we are just bringing them together so that we can work together, because of the animals that we are kept here. So the time that animals destroying the fence and go outside of the communities, they take care because they don't kill, because as you know that the animals that destroying the fence and going out, they have very important. They are very important. They have something important from the communities, because some they can kill to get food or meat for them. The skin also, and also the horns. They can take even the horns such as that for elephant, and they go and sell for it so that they can get the money. So that's why we make a good relationship with the communities. We offer them also the we give them the first priority as the time that we need or we raise the vacancy. We give them the first priority so that we employ them first before we get the others from the outside of the community. So that is my additional point that I need to say. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Anna Samuel. Yeah, that's great to see that you have such a wonderful model at Mugi that's really helping to build this positive relationship between the Conservancy and the community, and that the community is benefiting in such a way that allows members such as Jackson and Samuel to now be working in the same industry and passionate about the conservation as well. So that's really fantastic. We've got a few questions in the chat as well from Robert Lebasi. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And Robert, I'm wondering if you would like to unmute and ask your questions live.
Uh, good evening, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so unfortunately, I did not keep record of the speakers that were talking. But one of the questions that I wanted to ask is like, what strategies do you have in place to strengthen the relationship? But that one has been answered by the two speakers already. So maybe we can move to the third one, which talks about line poaching. Can we have more information with regards to what drives lion poaching? And the third one, it's abalone. I've heard that in Western Cape there's an increase of abalone poaching, and the people that are involved in abalone poaching are high-profile individuals. So I want to know, in terms of fighting poaching, how are you guys winning in that sense? Are they winning are they winning or not?
Great,
And
thank you,
then the
Robert.
last
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
one, I did not put. Well, the last one was about diseases, because he said that Mr. Brani said that he put animals into the parks in drought seasons. So I wanted to know, how do you guys mitigate the issues to do with zoonotic diseases, like the spreading of diseases between wildlife and domesticated animals?
Okay,
Thank you.
great. Thank you, Robert. Those are some really great questions. Thank you very much. So I think your first two about lion poaching and abalone poaching were directed maybe to Dr. Funda, because I know he mentioned those in his introduction.
Yes.
Thank you, facilitator. Thanks for the good question. The lion poaching, it's something that is not as old as the rhino and the elephant poaching. The information that we are getting from the suspects that we are arresting, and also from intelligence that we have, and from the interviews from the people that we are arresting, is that there is a demand for lion bones and lion claws in Asia. And the local people are not really the exporters of these animal parts, but they are used to kill these animals. Lions, they poison. Let's say there's a, sometimes we pick up donkey meat in our parks, and to try to attract lions to feed on the donkey meat, and they poison that meat, and they ended up getting lions. And it's something that is bad, and we are trying to deal with it, both in terms of the law enforcement, and also collaborate with different stakeholders, because the poison that they're using to poison these animals, some of these poisons are used in agriculture. And we try to monitor what poison is being used, and we take specimen and test, so that we understand what poison are we dealing with, and we raise awareness about this poison, and we share with other conservation agencies. And in terms of abalone, abalone is the same as rhino and lion. It's an organized crime that we're dealing with. We have syndicates that are operating that are buying these poached animals, and even that, it's the trends are similar to the rhino horn and the lion bones. They are getting into Asia for whatever they use it for in Asia. And are we winning? Yes, I think we are winning, because we have not seen the population being wiped out in our marine protected areas in terms of abalone. And even the lions, we have not seen that happening. Even rhinos, we still have rhinos in our parks, But unfortunately, in these talks that we are presenting, we need to be very careful in terms of revealing too much in terms of how the syndicates operate, because they are also listening, they are also having access into these technologies that we're using. Therefore, sometimes it becomes difficult for us to reveal too much on how do we operate and who are we targeting and how do we define a target and all of that. Therefore, I will stop there, facilitator.
Great, thank you, Dr. Funda. Just before we move on to the question about zoonotic diseases, I would like to share that Share Screen will actually be hosting a series about zoonotic diseases coming up. We haven't finalized dates or anything yet, but that will be available on our website as well in the future. And just while I have you here, Dr. Funda, and anyone as well, please feel free to jump in. I think I speak for a lot of people in that I'd be very interested to understand more about what the management structures are in terms of the ranking system of rangers. Perhaps we could hear from you and then go to Brian and Kenya and compare the differences there.
I don't know whether the lady who's going to show me my presentation, I have a 2-slide presentation about the ranks because I just want to have a guide.
Yeah, no problem. Murat can put that up for you. There we go.
That's it. Great. Thank you.
Ask and you shall receive.
Okay, can you move to the next slide? Okay. The organization is structured into junior management, middle management, and top management. And on the one side, the organization are concerned about production. They want to know how we're going to produce, how we're going to be better than last year or better than other organizations. And the costs of operations are critical, and also the revenue is critical in terms of what we do. And DM means decision making. As you go up the ladder, there are fewer people in organization. I mean, there's only one CE in our organization, for example. But as you go down, you have the middle management, you've got some people there. And as you go down to the bottom, we have junior management staff, and there are many people there. And I want the next slide, the last slide, if you can move that. Thank you. That's my last slide. If we look at the rangers themselves, how they are structured, they follow a similar trend, but with many layers. At the bottom, you've got a normal field ranger that you recruit someone with matric. You recruit from the street and you make that person a ranger. A matric, I think, is called grade 12 in these days. And few of them, if they are showing some leadership qualities, they start leading some patrols, and you promote them into a lance corporal. It means it's a leader of a group of leading a patrol, maybe 2 or 3 rangers that are in that patrol. In our case, it's only they patrol in 2s, and one of the ranger will be a lance corporal, and then the other one will be a normal field ranger. The purpose of having a lance corporal, we are preparing for the next level, but at the same time, you need to recruit and mentor and build capacity to the young and new rangers that are coming into the system. And a few lance corporals can be promoted into a full corporal. And for those that are coming from military, the language they will understand much better. And because we in conservation in South Africa specifically, I think in the whole continent, if it's not in the whole world, we follow a military approach in terms of ranks. And a full corporal is going to be the person who's responsible for a number of patrols and deployments in a section. And then the different corporals, they report to a sergeant. As you go up the ladder in terms of salary, you get a better salary, and in terms of decision making, you end up making more strategic decision. At the bottom of the pyramid, if I can refer to that, at the bottom, the very bottom, a normal field ranger, you need to have a very clear instructions or commands when you give instructions to make sure that they understand, or you have a clear manual or SOPs that you can use. SOPs are standard operating procedures, so that there is no misunderstanding and misinterpretation of the instruction. Easy, short, brief instructions. As you move up the ladder, you can start giving people some objectives, said, this is what I want to achieve at the end of the year or end of the day or end of the month. Therefore, how to do it, then it's going to depend on you. Your sergeant is very close to becoming an assistant section ranger. Therefore, you start introducing the sergeant into some managerial position, responsibility. Because one day that sergeant will become an assistant section ranger. An assistant section ranger is someone who understands how the rangers work. And most of the time, young students, we take them as assistant section ranger. I think the young ranger who's a senior section ranger now in the garden route, I think she started at a lower level like an assistant section ranger. Now, assistant section ranger is in charge of all the we can call the troops if we want, and all the field rangers, and usually they have different. We might have different assistant section ranger within a section or within a park, and those different section rangers, they report to a full section ranger, and the full section ranger is in charge of a particular section, or is in charge of a number of sections, of subsections. Then the section rangers, they report to a regional ranger. I will use an example in Kruger. Kruger is divided into four regions. There are 4 regions in Kruger National Park, and each region has got a senior a regional ranger. And below that, you've got section rangers in maybe 4 or 5 sections. If we use an example of Kruger, in the southern part of Kruger, you've got Skukuza, Pretoria, Skop, Stores Neck, Malalan, Crocodile Beach, and Lower Sabi. They form the Marula region. And as you move up north of the Sabi River, you get to another region with the same settings. And the regional rangers really are starting to contribute to strategic decisions and strategic directions of wildlife management, more special counter-poaching, environmental impacts into the park, and strategic drawing of policies and SOPs. The regional rangers start developing those, and for sustainability of the organization. I will say another pyramid is starting there above the regional ranger, where you start getting into the general managers like myself, and you move up the general manager, you become a senior general manager. Senior general manager, you become a director of a park, or an executive director, as they are called in these days. From that executive director, you become a CE. And the lady, she was talking about a female CE for the first time in St. Parks, for example. We had a female chief executive officer. And different layers have different responsibility and different decisions to make. At a lower level, you make very simple decisions. Usually, we don't rely heavily on people at the lower level in terms of decision making, because they operate they're using manuals and guidelines in terms of what they do. But what is important is also the grading in terms of salaries. We grade them according to their level of decision making. For those who understand Peterson bands, those bands in terms of remuneration is based on the level of decision that you make. I mean, for example, you don't expect a field ranger one day said, we're increasing salaries by 10% of the organization. That decision is not sitting with that field ranger. That decision is sitting with the executives or the chief executive officer of the organization. And those are the basic ranks that we have within the Ranger Corps. And I will stop there, facilitator. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Funda. That was very clear. Thank you for bringing those diagrams in, help us gain a little bit of more understanding about that structure. So Brian, I know we had the question about zoonotic diseases, but I just wanted to know how the structure compares in Kenya with what Dr. Funda has just explained to us.
So I'll actually get into a bit. We have some differences actually. I've noticed that we have quite significant differences in how we approach our management security perspective in particular, but I will request that we just pull up the same pyramid just so that I can sort of match it up to some of what they have. So thank you, Dr. Nick Funda, on that. So our hierarchy follows something similar with different naming protocols and different levels to this. And ours is a bit more spaced out. We do not have as many as you have. I can see yours is quite elaborate, something which we can borrow something from. So in our level, we have the lowest level being the field ranger, similar to what they have. And the field ranger, these are the rangers who are expected to be daily on the field and recording data, checking if the fence lanes are okay, doing patrols internally. And if they show similar to the same promotion mechanism used by Dr. Funda, if they show some level of leadership and skill, of course, we consider experience as well, we promote them to a junior commander position. So the commander position is something similar to what you could say a corporal on this other scheme. So the commanders at this level are expected to monitor whatever is happening, check if the patrols were done correctly by the teams that are under them. And part of that is the team that we put on ops room, because we need them to consistently monitor for the patrol, see what is happening, respond to situations. So these are the people responsible to oversee this. Above this level, we have a head ranger and head NPR. So NPR in Kenya stands for the National Reserve, National Police Reservist position. So these are the armed guards, while the rangers are the unarmed guards. So at this level, we have the head ranger overseeing everything that is happening in regard to the unarmed personnel, and the head NPR overseeing everything that's happening in regard to the armed personnel. So the commanders report directly to these two, irrespective of whichever position that they're currently serving under. Above this position comes the security administrator, which is the position that I am currently serving under. So this position is part of the, similar to what they're saying, the top management. So this is comprised of three people. That's the security manager, the assistant security manager, and the security administrator. So in this level, the hierarchy goes as I've just followed it: a security manager, then assistant, and the security administrator. So at this level, the roles are divided differently. Responsibilities are assigned differently to these three positions depending on the expertise. So for instance, the security administrator position is primarily mostly related to technical work and oversight of ICT events and monitoring of the ops room and communication. The assistant security manager position is, on the other hand, mostly operational events. This means going out to the field or taking direct command of the different teams that we have. If there is an operation that needs to be done, this is the person to oversee this. Both the security and assistant security manager then report to the security manager, who is on top of the chain in the departmental approach. Then, of course, after this, we go to the top level, similar to what Dr. Funda was saying, the CEO level, which is where I believe that cuts off and the chain of command ends there. So I don't know if that clarifies the question that you had asked.
Yes, it really does. Thank you, Brian. That's great. It's really interesting to understand a bit more about the differences between each country as well. I know that there had been a question about zoonotic diseases earlier, but well, there's lots of questions coming through in the chat. I see that Craig Spencer's also taken it upon himself to comment the answers as well, which is great. Thank you so much. I saw an interesting question from Amos Guema, which is, what are the mitigation measures used for, you know, predator conflicts? So conflicts with humans, but also, I guess, more broadly, human-wildlife conflicts as well. And I would be really interested, Shamel, to know if you have any kind of experience with that in your area and how you would deal with that as well, what the mitigation measures you'd use would be.
Sorry, I didn't get the start of the question.
So the question was, what are the mitigation measures you would use for human-wildlife conflict?
So within my side of the world, let's say, it would be a lot of mitigation is really to bring community awareness, education, environmental education programs. So we believe to start that awareness campaigns early on with the community. We also have engagements with, because there's various types of wildlife poaching going on. So we have angling communities of forums where we discuss with, for example, there would be a chairperson of the angling forum. We have actually made strides in that in our fishing communities, where most of the community engagements, we've done some training with community members along the coastline. We've actually rolled that out now in it was in Titicama, Wilderness, Knysna, as well as Table Mountain, and in Edo, where the program that is primarily run through our socio-ecologist team, they SCT, known as SCT, so they would go out and liaise with the community, where we also, as part of the rangers ourselves, had been part of the workshops in the beginning. So that's now with different young, well, the youth, more of the anglers that's been a bit aged, some of the communities, this is their income. We've got oyster commercial harvesters as well. We meet with them on a regular basis as well. We engage if there's any compliance issues that we may find. Sometimes, like if they don't report when they go out on the day to do their oyster harvesting and following the rules and permit regulations, really, then to engage with them and make sure that they understand. They also, a lot of that engagement also assisted in the sense that they would be in both of this, for example, this type of communities where we would, the community then turns around and be our eyes and ears, really, and they are in part helping us with conservation. So regardless of the age, when you start from a young age with the kids in parks programs or with the outreach programs in the communities, and just your everyday when you engaging with a member of community and they're asking you about what you do, and that type of engagement already have a mind shift. And then, of course, there is compliance part of things where you have your other hat on. So it's a lot of hat changes that you'll have to do during the day sometimes. But so when you're doing hardcore law enforcement, there's a different approach to it that you would obviously take more of a, like if it's abalone poachers, then you would respond differently towards that. So some of that mitigations is having regular patrols and knowing your area, knowing your hotspots. And again, I can't give too much of information on that as well, but a lot of that is stakeholder, external stakeholder engagements with other organizations like your police services, other government entities, Department of Environmental Affairs, the rest of the green scorpions, let me put it that way. So working with those agencies as well and fostering those relations, I think, is also having collaborative joint operations and engagements and discussing what works and what does not. And of course, again, like I said, intelligence gathering, a lot of that helps as well when we're doing wildlife conservation mitigations. We're talking now a little bit more marine side of things, but in the forest we also do have challenges where I think Dr. Funda mentioned it earlier on, in the Karoo area where you would have succulent plants that would be harvested illegally. And so likewise in the Cape Floristic region, you would have in the fynbos biome, bulbs and things that would be harvested. We also have bark harvesting occurring. So for those, there's also different operations required and different approaches that we take. But most of it really is engaging with the communities, engaging with traditional healers, engaging with the different entities and leaders within the communities. Liaising, communication, I think, is the start of everything, apart from the training, because we have skilled staff and throughout the ranks, and a lot of refresher training as well, and a lot of the legislation as well will change or be updated. So you have to regularly also be up to date with the changes that occur and make sure that everybody is aware and abreast of what those changes are in the landscape.
Great, thank you so much, Smala. It was really interesting to see the kind of the marine perspective or the coastal perspective of human-wildlife conflict. It's not usually an angle that we look at that issue from. So thank you for that. And also very interesting to hear how many different hats you have to wear, you know, how versatile you have to be in yourself with community engagement to deal with the different situations that come up. So really, really great. Thank you. We've got loads of questions coming in the chat. Really, really great to have so much audience engagement. I've got an interesting question here that's from Eric, a bit about ranger training, but also a question about whether rangers are armed on a daily basis. And I know that Craig Spencer has a good answer to this question. So Craig, I'd love for you to hop in here.
Goodness, I have to push all the buttons here to get back online. Can you see? I've had to move locations because
yes, we can see you
dodgy
now.
outside. So the rangers are not necessarily armed at all times, and I think it depends very much on the circumstances as well. So it's not a one glove fits all. You might find in the marine environment, for example, on the Bazaruta archipelago in Mozambique, you would rather not have armed rangers, and they would fulfill a more observational data capture kind of role. But again, conservation is not run with guns. Guns are important, but so are scientists. These are all tools in our toolbox. Your 4x4, your firearm, your dog, even the Department of Science and Research and Development here by me. You know, you as a ranger should not be attracted to this position because you can carry a gun. You know, there's got to be other jobs out there for you then. But do we need weapons? Absolutely. And do we need people that have a passion for weapons? Absolutely. But no, not every ranger carries a firearm. I've got a whole team of them sitting around the fire over there. Most of them are in the data capture observation arena, and they probably don't even know how to operate a firearm. That's a fact. You can ask the Black Mambas. They patrol day and night as well. They fulfill a totally different function, and once again, they are unarmed. But again, I caution that it's not a one glove fits all scenario.
Great. Thank you very much for that, Craig. And I think we have time for one more question, which has just come from Simon Omoni, something very interesting, which you just briefly touched on there, Craig. How technology can be used in tackling dealing with these issues, but also specifically in the international wildlife tracking. It's quite a broad question, but anyone who feels they'd like to jump in there?
Oh man, I want to start out and just quickly say
Yeah.
that, we came here to kind of escape from technology and to live in the bush and to sit around the campfire and watch the elephants drinking and so on. But let me tell you a little secret. I am surrounded by technology here. We are like Swiss Army Rangers now. We've got things that pop out of everything. We've got pangolins with GPS tracking units, and it's incredible how far our technology has come. Whether it's light technology with these LEDs and really small lithium batteries and so on. But in to combat illegal wildlife trade, and Dr. Nick will know what I'm talking about here with the rhino thing, we suddenly had to leapfrog into a technological era, and it was a bit of an arms race, really. And we are now, what's in the cup? Let me tell you. But a little bit of, if you must know, it's still about 36 degrees Celsius out here, but we have run out of stuff, so I'm on the old brown sherry. But so technology is a critical tool in our toolbox. You cannot get into this arena if you're afraid of technology. You have to keep up with the modern trends in technology, from thermal imaging to drones to camera traps with GPRS capabilities to tracking units. We even engaged in a project in the Nevada desert with putting 3D printed desert tortoises out with little LoRa devices and data loggers, accelerometers. So these were terms that I'd never heard of when I came into the conservation arena. But now suddenly people are asking advice on how to track the desert tortoise. So technology is absolutely crucial, whether it's radioactive isotopes that you will put in a water hole to see which animals are coming to drink there, because you can detect it easier, it's passive. So what we're trying to do with technology is obviously minimize and have a passive approach to capturing data, not biasing data with big gaudy things and spotlights and weighing down a wild dog with a 15-kilogram collar and then saying, oh, wild dogs don't move that far at all. Well, I wonder why, because it's got a massive weight hanging around its neck. And also in the wildlife security arena, guys, I'm telling you, it's about technology. Our senses that we were born with are not capable of performing after dark and under various circumstances. This is why, since the beginning of time, Nicholas Copernicus or any of these old guys, they had to enhance our current senses with the use of magnifying glasses, microscopes. If you think of Louis Pasteur, he had to invent a microscope to find a cure for rabies. We use sniffer dogs because our noses are not that good. We use thermal imaging because our eyes fail us. We use listening devices because our ears can't pinpoint a gunshot as accurately, so on and so on. We try to eliminate the human bias, do it passively, and not influence the behavior of the animals unnecessarily.
Great,
and stick
thank you
within
very
the
much.
budget.
Yes, very important. Thank
Yeah.
you so much, Craig. Okay, I saw Shamel nodding there, so I think she agrees with you, Craig, as well. Dr. Funda, I know that you wanted to comment on this, so maybe you could just give a very brief answer. We will be finishing in a couple of minutes because I know we've taken a lot of everyone's precious time. So a brief comment from you, Nick, would be great.
My comments will be limited to technology or just broad comments?
Both, well, both, I suppose. If you wanted to comment on the technology, you're very welcome.
Thank you very much. What we have seen making a huge impact is technology. Technology, the advantage of technology is sometimes when you deal with humans, sometimes on Mondays they have Babala's hangover and they don't perform very well. And technology usually it works 24/7. And sometimes technology does not go on sick leave and apply for leave. You have permanent presence in your park. I think Brian will be the best guy to talk about these technologies because he's coming from a different background. And secondly, I think it's important the poaching is not going to stop in the bush. We're going to win this in courts. And if we are getting light sentences in courts, we will be wasting our time. And what we have seen as a game changer is technology. It's boots on the ground. It's the level of commitments from the police to present cases in court. It's the magistrate that are giving stiff sentences and denying criminals easy bail. And those are the things that are really making a huge impact. Working with different agencies like the police, and because these products, they are going the same direction to Asia. And if you are not operating at a global scale, you're going to miss these things. Once they get into a container or into an aircraft, they are gone. You don't have any chance. Therefore, it's important that you work with things like Interpol and work with different police in different worlds, different parts of the world to share information and share strategies of how to deal with these criminals because they operate at a global scale. Thank you, facilitator.
Thank you so much, Dr. Funda. Okay, Brian, if you have any final comments, if you'd like to briefly speak about technology, you're very welcome to.
Okay, maybe I'll just join in on the thought that Dr. Funda maybe put out there. Maybe when I joined the conservation space, of course, as I mentioned earlier, I did not know much about the technology that was being used on this side of the scope. I was more into like software development, business management, and the whatnot on that side. So once I joined, it was like discovering a new universe in terms of technology, because there is so much within conservation technology that, if used correctly, can potentially make sure that we do not have any of these events that we currently have, maybe poaching and even the trafficking. And I'd like to also back up what Craig Spencer mentioned about the LoRa. So the LoRa system is actually very intuitive. I don't know how many people within this panel use them in their conservancies, but it's actually something that we are working on implementing on our side as well. And it works with the small devices, the small chips, and that can just be put on any animal that you want to track, any equipment you want to track, and you can just see it all through, know where it's going, know what's happening, know the activities that are happening, which is quite beneficial in terms of just monitoring how everything is working. The different camera traps, when I came in, I came to learn of how technology can be used for conservation, which is it's quite a lot, yeah. With the camera traps, of course, the AI event detection, and with the developments in AI currently, I can say that we're looking into a future that will even develop much better things in future. So like, and basically also companies like in South Africa, I believe we have a panelist from South Africa. South Africa is actually doing a very good job in the development of conservation, because I know companies like Earth Ranger are currently based in South Africa, and Earth Ranger is quite helpful in most conservancies. We've done benchmarks around various conservancies. It presents a very beautiful dashboard. We can monitor a large number of tools, integrates with a large number of tools, including the LoRa devices. So I will say technology has great potential when applied correctly. And I believe this again ties back to funding, which I believe is very important for most of what we do as conservation managers and people who are in conservation. So I think that is my comment on that. Yeah, thanks.
Great, thank you, Brian. That was really fascinating. And I think, like Craig said, as much as people would like to go into the bush and hide from technology, I think it does offer us some really invaluable tools that could be used to really reduce issues in poaching and really help towards conservation, like you said, Brian, if used appropriately. And that is about all we have time for. I wish we could go on and on. This panel has been so fascinating. There's so many more questions that have been asked, and I really hope that I didn't miss anyone's questions. I hope that overall everyone had their questions answered. And I want to say thank you very, very much for our wonderful audience for joining. Great to see so many people that were so engaged, asking lots of wonderful questions. And a very, very, very big thank you to our wonderful panelists for donating your time, your expertise, and helping us to educate the future conservationists and people that are really interested. So big thank you from me and the Leadership for Conservation Africa team. The recording of this talk will be available in about a week on our website. And so for those of you that missed or would like to catch up, you're very welcome to view it there. For the panelists, we will share the comments in the chat with you. There are lots of wonderful comments of thanks and maybe some more interesting questions that we've missed as well. So thank you very much, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.
A last word, if I may.
Yes.
And I
That'd be
think
great.
Dr. Funda would, in fact, I think all the panelists would agree. The community, guys, we've spoken about technology, we've spoken about skill sets that we need as rangers and what have you, but just as much as you can't dodge the technological arms race, you have to recognize the value of working with the communities. I think that's been our biggest success in conservation globally, is engaging communities. And there was a question about this earlier. The role of a field ranger or a conservation manager is now shifting a lot off the protected area landscape and more into the communities. And what I have learned is, and if you can remember these things just from my personal experience, is respect the hierarchies in those communities. So, you know, if you want to get information or you want to get a message out there and what have you, respect the hierarchies in those communities, open the communication channels, which is exactly what Chanel said earlier as well. Have strong communication channels in there, and don't raise expectations. If you say you're going to do something, you must do it. Okay. Because otherwise they will lose faith in you very quickly. Just like we lose faith in our politicians and our police or any service provider that promises they'll come out to fix your Wi-Fi on Wednesday, but they never pitch, and so on and so on. It's a human thing. So those basic principles, do not shirk the community. Do not hide in the bush. The animals on our landscapes are actually okay. They don't even know we exist half of the time. You know,
Yes.
to build resilience, get into the communities and engage them. That's all I've got to say.
Great point, Craig. Thank you very much for bringing that up. Very important.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it.